Hi, I'm Yuri Sobo. This is my photography classroom. This is the second class, and I will talk about exposure and food photography. We are all locked in, so probably eat a little bit more than usual. So some tricks for food photography will be very useful. But let's start with the exposure. What is the exposure? Your picture can look a little bit too bright. That means that too much light comes into your camera, and your picture is overexposed. Or your picture can be a bit too dark. That happens when not enough light comes into your camera and it's underexposed. So you need the right amount of light coming into your camera. You can also control this manually, and I will show you how. Okay, so hopefully you remember from the last class that you can fix your focus. It's a very simple trick. Just tap on the picture and your camera will focus wherever you tap. Now you probably noticed that when you tap somewhere, the exposure can change as well. So your picture can become brighter or darker. When you tap on something which is bright, it will get a little bit darker. And when you tap on something dark, it will brighten up. Why is that? Again, your camera is assuming that this is the focus of your picture. So when you tap on something really dark, it will brighten it up a little bit to show the details. When your subject is a little bit light, it will darken it. Now, how can you control it? Because you might not like it. For instance, this one is probably a little bit overexposed. So it's very, very simple again. So you tap where you want to take a picture, and then afterwards you just start to move your finger up and down, and that will control your exposure. Really simple. Where to stop? Probably I would say somewhere here. You can take a picture. But it's also personal preference, so you might like a little bit, let's do the cup now. You might like a little bit overexposed or a little bit brighter pictures, which is somewhere here. Or you might like something which is a tiny bit darker, so something like this. Also, if you're not quite sure, you can take multiple pictures, which I just did. And then you can pick the best later. Let's talk about food photography. I love to take pictures of food. I usually use my big camera, but you can take amazing pictures with your phone as well. Okay, first thing first, from your last class, hopefully you remember, you need to clean the lens. Second, let's talk about the light itself. In general, the more light you have, the better it is for photography. Today we have a nice cloudy day, which is actually really good for food photography because it's diffused light. If the sun is out, it's quite harsh, which means that you will have very dark shadows. So cloudy days with diffused light is much better. Okay, let me show you the very first trick for food photography. It is actually really simple. You need to put your phone on portrait mode. Here it is. What it does, it has a very shallow depth of field. It's very similar to when your camera has wide aperture with shallow depth of field. That means that only your subject will be in focus. Everything behind and before will be out of focus. It will be a bit blurry. You can see it here. So tap on your subject. You can change the exposure a little bit, maybe a little bit brighter, and take the picture. Very, very simple. So just use the portrait mode. Okay? And now let's talk about different angles. Traditional angle is probably around like 45 degrees, but this is quite old school. If you look at Instagram or modern cookbooks, usually it's either an overhead angle or straight on. It doesn't really work actually for this shot, with this fruit shot, but it would probably work for like a sandwich or for, let's say, a burger or something like that, when you can see the layers. But for this one, actually, overhead looks brilliant. So you can try different angles for your food shot. So to sum it up again, make sure you clean your lens, use the portrait mode in order to have shallow depth of field, so everything before and after behind your picture will be out of focus, it will be blurry. and try different angles. Probably overhead and head-on shots are the best. Thank you for watching today's video. I talked about exposure and food photography. I will put some of my pictures at the end of this video for inspiration. See you next week.